G'day and welcome to Inforunners. I'm Execute, all well refreshed and looking a bit better, I think. Joined today by Dasein and Algared. We thought we'd have a chat about the old Starfarer with the gas tech coming back online, um, and basically just have a look and see if we can convince you guys that it's probably not as bad as even we've looked at it and gone, "Wow, this was bad." But we're going to go over it. I've had a few messages from about 3 or 4 people over the last couple of weeks asking me specifically about this ship. And I did tell them we'd been planning to do an episode, so I've kind of moved it up the schedule a bit. So we're going to talk about it today. But Algrid, can you go over like just the general
Yep.
overall of this ship? I guess I'll leave it at that.
So when the ship was initially concepted, it was built as this ship that could do harvest and refine quantum fuel. And when quantum fuel became a solid mass, people left the ship in droves, mainly because that key component, that key thing we bought the ship for, was gone. And even we jumped on that bandwagon. But one of the things I remember I looked at the time was the other things that ship did. And when you look at the cargo capacity of a ship, when you look at the jump seats that a ship has in the hangar module, when you look at the ability to carry vehicles, I think it can take the Ursa just as in terms of the height of the ramp and other things. You actually got a really versatile ship, and I actually started calling it a mini M2 or a mini Hercules because of the types of things it can do. You also look at the the liquid cargo pods on the back of your ship, which aren't currently functioning in game, and you add that to the cargo capacity in the hangar itself, and you're looking at a ship that probably does upwards of 400, 500 SCU of cargo. So that's a huge advantage when you start looking at this ship. The downside is it still only does one ship in terms of refueling when that eventually comes online. But in terms of general capability of this ship has a lot more going for it than I think we or many people have often given credit for.
So some of the other stuff you have mentioned to me in the past, Algrid, is things like the. Did you mention it then? The 12 jump seats. I
Yep.
don't
Yeah.
can't
Well, I
recall.
didn't mention them in number, but in the hangar, there are
Yeah,
actually 12 jump seats, 6 on each side. That's huge. That's more than a Valkyrie.
and I
Not a
kind of
Valkyrie, a hoplite.
yeah. So you've got a ship that's kind of like I actually start to look at this ship a little bit more like a Starrunner now in the Starfarer. And what I kind of mean by that is it's giving up combat ability, and even in the case of the Starrunner, it's the other way where it's giving up maneuverability to gain multiple um, economic based
Mm.
gameplay advantages. So things like, yes, you can use it kind of a little bit like a drop ship. You can kind of use it a little bit like a cargo ship, and you can swap out the cargo ships. Um, you can use it as a liquid transporter, and one of the things I've been looking at is if you look in real life how liquid containers work, um, they can't go above a certain size because they're too heavy. Now, I know space is a factor, so you could have the biggest container you ever wanted in space because of anti-gravity, but those containers do eventually, because they're transported, have to be able to go down to planets. So I also firmly believe, and this is just speculation on my part, that this ship having those really big uh, cylinders on the back that carry gas and liquid are probably going to be where it sets itself apart from other ships, where I believe certain liquid cargo containers will only go up to a smaller size, and therefore that gives ships like this that actually can carry liquid a benefit to be able to carry that liquid or gas.
It's important to just point out with that the reason you get more volume is just because you have all the extra packing material when it's smaller. You have basically the tank, now you have all that extra metal and everything in between, so you can't get as much volume.
Yeah, like
So,
a propellant tank or a gas tank or whatever you
Mm.
call it. Yeah, for the barbecues, they're quite heavy. I like people go, oh, it's gas, it'll be light, and it's like really heavy because it's really compressed to the point that this gas becomes pretty much like a liquid. So you are carrying like a liquid based container.
Mm.
yeah.
And if you actually go look at really big liquid containers, you can get these massive concrete reservoirs, but they are stationary. They never ever move. And the biggest ones I've ever seen basically fit on the back of a truck. And I don't think you would get any bigger than that. And I don't know. You guys tell me. Do you think that that is possibly a thing that they're doing with this ship? Is they're going, well, this has got special reinforced tanks. That's why they're carried out the back too. They're not carried in like normal cargo.
It
And
makes perfect.
go on.
I was going to say it makes perfect sense for that, but also the fact is you need that extra space probably for not just a cargo but the crew, because there's, let's just put it this way, this ship seems to be very versatile, and when you look at it in fleets, this is a ship that every fleet will want because it will be able to carry not just extra cargo for your fleet, but it carries the fuel for the fleet. It's able to carry vehicles down if you need to do that. It has that niche that's very important in addition to refueling capabilities for the fleet. So
Yeah, that's a big one.
The other thing to pick up on what you were saying, Execute, in terms of those container sizes,
mm,
this has, what, 6 or 8 of those container sizes? And if they could make those containers bigger, I would have expected this ship to actually carry the bigger container rather than lots of medium containers. So, speculation on my part, are those containers that we see on the back of the Starfarer the biggest that they can get? And they're saying these are the biggest we can get to go up and down to a planet. And so, or is it just the versatility of being able to carry 8 different gases? So I'm just tossing that out there.
we'll come back
as a
around to
thought.
that in a minute because I do want to get back to what Dyson was saying about the refueling thing, and I don't think that can be over simplified, so to speak, because that is probably one of its main functions as well. Even before when we've gone, oh, it can't refine anymore. The Quantanium, that would have been its one of its big functions. And the funny thing is, the more you look back at this ship, the more you realize it actually had quite a bit of functionality, multiple functionalities, in fact, as we've just kind of gone over a few of them. And I know you guys kind of have said with the refueling thing, you would like it to be able to do multiple ships at the same time. I still think it's going to do that fairly quickly. Um, and there's no reason in the history of that hasn't gone in the game yet, so to speak. So there's no reason that they can't have some kind of modification so it can maybe split and do 2 fighters at once, or go once together and do one big ship, something like that. I'm just saying there's no reason that they can't look at that before it goes in. So now going back to what Algared was saying about the bigger fuel containers, what I would like to move on to that in regards to that is also, I feel that this ship is probably the medium version of itself. And so there's a couple more steps we've got to get back to what I was saying. But that's the really big thing is that does make this ship unique, is it can still collect gas and liquid. There is no other ship in the game currently that can do that. And yes, other ships may eventually be able to carry it, and this can carry it as well. But like the Orion or the Mole or the Prospector, they are the start of that profession. And so if you kind of look at this as liquid or gas mining, this kind of puts that ship almost on par with those, because, or in a way, may even make them rarer, because if minerals are so abundant and gas is rarer because there's just less Starfarers, that actually kind of makes this like a rarer mining ship in a weird way. And I do eventually, God, man, it's such a long-winded point to get back to what I was trying to say. But different size ships, and that's getting back to what you were saying about the different size cargoes. Maybe they will have a really large version of this ship that can have like, those sea ones that carry oil and stuff, Agrid? The big ships that
Yep.
if I'm pitching something like that, it's got these massive tanks, but it can only go in space.
Yeah, the liquid gas ones, great big dome on the container.
Exactly.
I would
go ahead.
I would also not be surprised if you actually saw a ship that was more like an oil rig that would just deploy out there. Think like an Orion that just sucks up, that goes in the middle of a nebula. Boom, there you go. Set up shop. Start picking up a whole bunch of gas and refining it.
So basically, it just puts out giant vacuum cleaners and just sucks everything.
Yes,
it could do, and I do actually question that as well. Because this ship is so much older, will that kind of still work? Now I can see it working with gas and liquid in space, what if we actually have gas and liquid on planets? Like we've seen pools of liquid before, we've seen geysers. So do they have something more like, as I said, like a vacuum cleaner that kind of reaches over and can literally suck the liquid out of a pool? Or does it actually put it over a geyser and suck in the gas? Because that can't do that. So that also leads me to a third option, which is something smaller like a prospector, but it's a gas collector.
Or something
Or,
smaller like a rock.
yes,
Mhm.
which is... You're cutting ahead,
Yep.
Algared. We had this
I'm
all
so- I'm
planned, and
sorry.
you're jumping the gun. That's fine. No, he's right, but he's right though, and that leads us on to another benefit of this,
Yep.
the Starfarer, is the ability to carry vehicles, and because it can refine. So, not just a vehicle that collects gas, but using the rock as well, and a nice big crew of 8 people or so. I can see it. I can see multiple rocks and whatever this new gas vehicle is called. I don't know what we'd call it, but going in the back, maybe 2 or 3 of each, and they collect some contanium up with a rock, and they collect up some gas or fuel or whatever it is with that, or some rare gas, and they take it in, and it's all refined, and this ship doesn't even have to leave because you can have another cargo ship rock up, take that, and fly it back. So you can see this. All of a sudden, you've got this fleet mechanic going just based around one ship.
Yep.
And then later on,
It's-
as you get into a bigger fleet, the ship goes with you, giving it even more versatility. As in, so it's one of those ships that is not going to get... It scales up, is what I'm trying to say, which is really good.
It's a sleeper ship in some ways, in terms of
Mm.
the way in which we've often lampooned and criticised the ship for being clunky and losing its main function, but it still has quite a lot of meat on the bone, so to speak.
Don't get me wrong,
Um,
Algared. It flies like a complete bathtub. Like
It does. It
it's
does fly like
shockingly
a complete
that.
bathtub.
Yeah.
But I
Well-
like you though, Algared. I do enjoy flying those weirder ships just for the experience. Like you and I both fly the Caterpillar a lot because it is weird to fly, and this is another one I fly frequently because it is weird and it's just
And
interesting.
one I fly is often a reclaimer because it's a maggot to
too.
fly. So you get, it's just the challenge. If I can lift these things up and get them going smoothly, hey, that's huge. Anyone can fly a fighter, but
You
the
want
big
to say,
ships.
Dasein?
I was just gonna say it just doesn't just fly clunky. Its interior is horrible, and I
Yeah.
just have to say, if they ever do a rework or a balance pass, you're not going to get that change just because this is an FPS level. This is
Yeah.
not just, I would say, for Squadron 42, even though I think that was the main purpose. I think it's also a great ship for retrieve X box at X location and spawn a few enemies there and call it a day.
Yeah, it certainly is a ship for going in and finding those locations. And X have been, its crew members been lost on the ship. Ship's been destroyed. We've got to find it. He could be anywhere in that rabbit warren.
When it
So
when it was released, they actually did say it was like a flying Counter-Strike level, and I think that it's older. And when we did Can We Fix It on this ship, we did kind of mention that it does need a rework, but that rework, when it does eventually come, is probably going to be a lot further away than people realize. And looking at how they do other ships, that's probably what's going to happen. But it'll be a whole new model. But I honestly think it will decrease a lot in size. But I also think it'll probably lose some of its other versatility factors. So though you'll get a sleeker Starfarer, you'll also lose some of that versatility. So it's a win and a loss in some ways. And I actually kind of like that because, as you were saying before the show, Algared, it's probably going to stay around in the game regardless. Have versions.
Yeah, I think we're not going to see this change too much, mainly because it's needed for Squadron. We know that. We've seen it in the vertical slice. I can't see it not being an FPS function of some form in Squadron.
Yeah.
And which is why we've kind of got it like that.
And we've seen it in other ships too, haven't we? We've seen that FPS type of functionality, like on the Hammerhead and...
Yeah. So I could see if they did want to kind of redo this ship, I could see it becoming a discontinued model, which is great because it just increases the value of that particular ship. And then a new model coming out that has sleeker, flies better, does X, Y, Z, maybe a little better, but loses that versatility. So, but in the long run, I still like this ship, as even with all the bits and issues with it. I still like this ship because of the versatility it does have.
She's a quirky old bird. I'll give her that.
She is a quirky old bird at that. That's true.
Yeah. I think I'll make this kind of short and sweet and wrap this one up here. But can you guys let us know in the comments, like, when you sit here and you actually start to think about the Starfarer, does, you know, especially with gas tech just coming online and it's just around the corner, I think this ship might start to see its heyday. The difference might be, though, like some of the other ships, like the Reclaimer, we know that they're making the Vulture to do the start of salvaging. Would you see them using this, knowing that gas tech is already online in space? I can see that. Or do you think that they'll make something smaller that can do ground planets and space? And I honestly lean towards this at the moment. That's my personal 2 cents. But yeah, like, are there other versatilities of this ship that we've all kind of just forgotten because it's been around for so long? And yeah, let us know in the comments your thoughts. I do think that this is a redeemable ship, so to speak. And yeah, as I said, I said that to multiple people that have contacted me over the sale. I don't think I've held on to mine, even though I've said I really hate what's happened to it. I've still held on to it because I do want to see what comes out of it. I do, as Algared kind of said, I do think there's some things that we've just completely overlooked. And yes, it is a bit of a mess inside. That's the other thing, and I think that the mess inside and the loss of the quantum is what's really led to the so-called downfall of this ship. But yeah, anything else you'd like to add, Dasein, before we wrap up?
I think that's perfect. Just want to hear what you guys say, because it's a big topic.
It is. Algared, anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No. Add your comments. Make sure they're respectful. Tell us what you think. Are we crazy? Well, I'm already crazy, but you know what I mean.
Oops, too late. Yeah, like, subscribe, all that type of jazz. If you want to go further, support us on Patreon, all that type of stuff. We are planning our very first ever giveaway. I'm still working on the details. But yeah, we'll talk about that more soon. Just put it this way, it's not going to be like most giveaways. We'll leave it at that, and we'll surprise you guys with it when we get it all sorted out. All right, he's been Algared, he's been Dasein, I've been Execute, and we'll catch you all in the next one.
We're out of here. Take care.